So I'd like to welcome you on the second day of the symposium. I hope you will enjoy it. Today we will also be having a coffee break, so I hope you will be happy with that. In the first part, we'll be having a few presentations. And since yesterday we focused more on industry and community hospital pharmacy, today we'll be focusing more on the regulatory affairs side. We'll be having several speakers focusing on different areas. Then we'll be having coffee break, as I mentioned. After coffee break, we'll be having a panel discussion for around 30-45 minutes. So in case you have any questions for the speakers in the first part, please ask your questions on Slido, as yesterday, slido.com, #EPSAAC21. Please mention the speaker you are asking the question to, and we'll be taking them after the coffee break. And then it will be a student symposium. So 3 students that are here in the room will be presenting some research they have been doing, so I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, let's officially start. And for the first part, I will invite my colleague from EPSA, Chloé Lebeau, Vice President of European Affairs, because she will be moderating the first session.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the first session of the symposium, which will be dedicated to discussion on the extension of pharmacist immunization skills, the role of students, and education. I would like to start by thanking our speakers who are here with us today and for accepting to debate with us on such an important topic. First, I would like to welcome Katia Sousa Marquez, who is member of the board of the National Association of Pharmacies and member of the Council of the Specialty College of Community Pharmacy of the Order of Pharmacists in Portugal. We also have here with us today Olivier Roser, President of the Regional Unions of Health Professionals for the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region in France, as well as the President of USPO, one of the French National Union of Community Pharmacists. Vaccination has now more than ever reaffirmed itself as a tool to maintain public health and fight epidemics. With vaccine being on the headline of national news all over Europe and the world, awareness on its importance is slowly being raised. Those who were already for immunization are becoming advocates, and the skeptic ones are getting more convinced. But one issue remains: how do health systems make information, vaccines, and vaccination services accessible to patients? The pandemic has impacted the organization of health systems, expanding the legal scope of community pharmacy practice to maximize their contribution to patients and health systems, including through vaccination and immunization. This permitted the launch of expanded pharmacy-delivered flu vaccination programs and pilots in countries, including Portugal, on the top of existing programs, for example, in France. I would like to first ask our speakers to further explain the implementation of such programs, and starting with Olivier Roser.
Hello. Sorry for the delay because I thought I would speak later in the program, but it's a pleasure to be here today. I don't know how many countries are represented today, but I'm very glad there is so many people this morning. I will talk to you about what happened in France for the last 4 or 5 years and the impact it has on vaccination in our countries. Well, it has begun in 2016 when the Parliament got the possibility for pharmacists to do the vaccine, which was really forbidden and for even most by GPs who say it was very dangerous for us to do the vaccine, and most dangerous for the patient. But as we will see later, I think there is a huge benefit for our country, especially on this year of 2021, which is maybe the year of vaccination. So we started an experimentation in 2017, which began in this area in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. And we are trying to include the pharmacists to participate at this experimentation. But at that time, we didn't know if they wanted to do that. And there was other fact, we didn't know if patients would like to be vaccinated by pharmacists because they would not trust what we will do. And yes, as we will see, on the first year, they expected 30,000 vaccination, but in fact, we did 100,000 in this area. And we included at that time 65% of the pharmacies. That is why, after only 1 year of experimentation, and not 3 years as it was scheduled, the Ministry of Health decided to validate the experimentation. There was a second year, it was only a transition year because it was not possible to do the training for all the pharmacists in the country at the same time. So there was two other areas were included in vaccination. And it's only at the third year that all pharmacists in France could do the vaccines. And as you can see, why it was a success? Because we had 65% because it was a long delay to have the training, so it was we couldn't have everyone at the first year, but on the second years we are 80%, and now we are about 90%. Meaning we have reached the maximum level of pharmacy who could do the vaccine, because it's not only about training, it's also about your pharmacy, and if you have the space and the time to do the vaccine. So there is very small pharmacies which have not enough person in the pharmacy to do the vaccine, so we can't all participate to the vaccination campaign. And the second year, it was also a big success, because as you can see, they expected, the agencies are not very, how you could say, innovative. They don't trust us very much, because they say, okay, we will do a 40% more. No, we didn't do 40%, we did 300% more vaccination on the second year. So as you can see, there is an impact on the rate of vaccination. You can see on the 4 years of what happened before the experimentation and after the experimentation in 2018. You had it has increased than more than 12%, which was not happening in the first years. I think those draws speak for themselves. And what happened now, after only 3 years, because that numbers came from the last campaign, not the one we are doing now. Now we are the first vaccinators for the flu vaccine. 38% by pharmacists, 35% by GPs, and 27% by nurses. Meaning that's really what patients wanted to have, a simple path to get their vaccine. It's a good number, but it's not an end, because with 38% of pharmacists and 12 million vaccination, there is still a lot of persons who are not getting the vaccine. And maybe I will talk about that later. You have a role in that. Well, you can see the medicine coverage has changed, and mostly last year. But last year was a very special year, because we were on the second wave of COVID-19 situation in France, and we had no COVID-19 vaccine. So there was a big rush on flu vaccine. That is why it has changed a lot. But this number also is not an end, because it hides something, that every year you have almost in France 300,000 to 500,000 more persons who is in the target of vaccination. So the benefit of having pharmacists doing the vaccine is that you can absorb all this mass of people who are included in the vaccination, because like in every country, we have a country where people get older, get more and more older, and that means from 65 years to the end of life, we have 300 or 500,000 persons more each year. And this year, the target has changed too because they have included other categories of persons, mostly persons who are working in the health community. And a huge benefit, and I like this slide because it shows all the benefit to have a country with a pharmacist as vaccinator. As you know, we have a huge campaign of COVID-19 vaccination this year, and it has started with vaccination centers in France, and after that, it started with GPs. At the beginning of the campaign, there was a lot of center vaccination and only the GPs. And as you can see, pharmacists are just arriving about March and April. Mostly, why not there? Because at that period, GPs thought it was dangerous for a patient to have their vaccine by a pharmacist. And as I used to say, if you have an issue with a vaccine, it's not because of the person who do the vaccine, it's just only because of the vaccine. If you do an allergic reaction, it's not because you are allergic to pharmacists or allergic to GPs, it's only because you are allergic to the vaccine. And then on the COVID-19 vaccine, after several months, as you can see, now we are the first vaccinator, far more. We are doing 50% more vaccine than GPs on the last period. Here it was very difficult for us because we have only one vaccine, it was the AstraZeneca vaccine. And after, in June, July, we have the Moderna was coming. And in August, we had the Pfizer. So at that period, we had 4 vaccines in pharmacies. AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Johnson, and Moderna. Meaning we were doing, in France, the most difficult job on vaccination, because in the center there are only the Pfizer, sometimes Moderna, but very few, because they prefer just to have one kind of vaccine in center. And us, in our fridge, we have four kinds of vaccine. And we have no rule exactly no exact rule to say, okay, you're 70 years old, which vaccine do you want? We were just asking people what they want for vaccine. Now, you know, all the previous vaccines, they are the perfect target, so you can do a vaccine to anyone. You just have to sorry, I missed my word. You just have to respect the rule of the vaccine. But on the COVID-19 vaccine, if you want an AstraZeneca or Pfizer or Moderna, it's the patient who have to choose. In the reality, it was us who chose for the person, and at that period, we have stopped the Johnson and the AstraZeneca, and for now, it's mostly Pfizer, because there was a recommendation for the first dose last week, to say you can do the first dose with Moderna. Now it will change, because we will certainly do the third dose with a half dose of Moderna. But as you can see on that slide, if you include nurses, more than 50% of the vaccination for the patient are made by pharmacists. And it's very important to look at that, because the future of vaccination is certainly in pharmacies. It's not because I'm a pharmacist, it's because when you speak with the patient and they have their vaccines, it's so cool to have it here, because I don't have to get an appointment at the GPs, I don't have to run to the vaccination center, it's easy. And if you want to increase the rate of vaccination, on COVID-19, on flu vaccine, on Zona vaccine, on measles vaccine, you need to do something easy and simple for all the patients. That is why there are always for the profession, nurses and GPs say, no, let's get slow on that. But I think the most angry on the vaccination by pharmacists was nurses on the flu vaccine. And as I can see, for nurses, they are in blue there, it's very difficult for them to participate to those kind of campaigns. They have included the flu vaccine campaign in their practice every year, but to vaccinate all the year for all the vaccine, as you can see, they are not the best to do that. It's not me who say that, it's the number. Okay, was it? Oh, sorry. And as we asked me just this morning to do what a student could do about vaccination, as I said, we are only on flu vaccine, we are only at 58%, and we need to talk and to speak more about vaccination in our pharmacies. And as I remember, when I was a student, we never spoke about vaccination in our studies. Now in France, more, because pharmacists can do the vaccine, so of course you need to speak about vaccination, but to my opinion, not enough. And it's not because if you are not in a country where pharmacists can do the vaccine, that you can speak about vaccination in your pharmacy. So in all the countries you represent here, you need to include in your training, in your formation, immunology, vaccination. Because if you are good at that, speaking of vaccination, maybe the politics will say, okay, students are ready, so we can we can go a step more and agree for pharmacists to participate in vaccination campaign. In Poland, I was in Poland last month. They were not ready, pharmacists, to vaccinate because they were not agreeing on flu vaccine. And I was surprised to discover that the government asked the pharmacy to participate to the COVID-19 vaccination. It was very strange because they were not trained for that. So they had a little training, very fast training. But as you can see, for those kind of crises, it's a huge crisis on COVID-19. But you can have a small crisis. You have a measles situation in a place. But you can ask pharmacists to participate in an area, in Lyon, in London, I don't know where, and ask all the pharmacists to do this kind of campaign, this kind of crisis campaign, because it will be easier and mostly it was cheaper for the government to ask just pharmacists doing what they can do is to vaccinate. So I really believe that on that subject, it comes from you, because we were not lucky at my period to speak about that subject. And what you can see that 20 years after, because I was student more than 20 years, we were not, I can say, in the spirit of participate of those kind of things. When we were talking about vaccination in 2015, which was only 1 or 2 years before the experimentation, when you had the pharmacists say, "Oh, are you sure? Are you sure we are going to do that? Maybe it's dangerous, I don't know." So you need to be prepared, because at the time it will come in your country, and I'm sure it will come very soon, you will be prepared, you will all participate in mass in vaccination campaign. I don't know what time I have to end my speech, so maybe there is some few questions.
We will be coming to questions after the second presentation.
As you can see, I not read all the programs. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Olivier. And as you said, it is true that students have a really important role to play as for students, but also for pharmacists. And in order to pharmacists deliver vaccination to evolve, we are the first step for it. And thank you for your remarks. Now I would like to welcome to the stage Cassius. Thank you.
And now? Hello, good morning. How nice to be back to live sessions, to face-to-face sessions. I would like to start by thanking EPSA for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure for me to stay here to talk about the experience of the Portuguese pharmacies in vaccination. And to talk about this, I would like to invite you to a quick trip with me, to take a quick trip with me over the last 13 years of the experience of the pharmacies in Portugal with the vaccination. So we have to go back to 2007 In this year, we have an important legislative change that allows pharmacies to develop new service. And one of them is the administration of vaccines not included in the National Vaccination Plan. Some examples of these vaccines are the flu vaccine, pneumonia, cholera, and others. For your information, before of these moments, people with a prescription acquire the vaccine on a pharmacy and then have to go to a health center or a nursery center to the administration. So in the following year, the training model, the intervention model was defined. To develop this service on the pharmacy, we have a lot of requirements, some physical requests, some professional requirements, and also some mandatory equipment and materials for the administration, and also to act in case of emergency, in case of anaphylactic or a vagal reaction. For the professional certification, we have to develop a competence in vaccines administration, certified by the Royal Society, the Pharmaceutical Society, and have two dimensions, a theoretical dimension and a practical dimension. The practical dimension has an experience to administration of vaccines and also in basic life support. And we have to renew this competence every 5 years. And this experience is very important for pharmacists. We have more than 4,000 pharmacists in Portugal available and with the competence to the administration. And this step was a giant step for the people because in Portugal there is no other health network that better distributed throughout the country like the pharmacies. Today we have pharmacies where there is no longer a doctor or a health unit, but the pharmacy maintain our service to the population. And this little change, allows the access to the vaccination to people. Another mandatory requirement is the records. We have to record all data about the vaccine, about the patient, and also about the pharmacist who administered the vaccine. Our system, our informatic system, is our best friend, and automatically register all the records and also simultaneously communicate to the record of the patients and also to the GP who is following the person. But in 2013, there was a new legislative change that allows citizens over 65 years that can be vaccinated on their health units for free, with no cost, with no prescription, but not in the pharmacy. I believe that a joint solution between the pharmacies and the health center is the best answer to answer to the people's needs. It guarantees access to the vaccine, the equitable access to the service, regardless on the region of the country that the peoples live. Based on this belief, in 2018, a pilot project in Lourdes municipality near Lisbon was developed, which promotes the dispensation on the pharmacy. It's the 10 minutes, it's a pressure. So the pharmacies and the health units act simultaneously simultaneously to provide a broader solution for the population. And pharmacy vaccinated with no cost, with no prescription, like in the other health units. And the choice of the place where the people want to be vaccinated is up to the citizens. The result was very positive, and the project was repeated in the following year. I don't want to bore you with numbers, but I have to point out that intervention was increased the vaccination coverage in Loures about 32%. And with this intervention, it was possible to reach to more people, and when compared with the previous season. And also the results also translate satisfaction, confidence in quality of pharmaceutical service. I believe it's from the evidence of our work that we do every day that we can build our future, and this pilot project allowed the pharmacy to the next step. And then 2020 came and the pandemic arrived and brought new challenge. The access to the health units was very compromised, and it was essential to find new solutions to the access to the flu vaccine for people with risk factors and also for general population. Some companies with essential workers had partnered with pharmacies, the flu for their employees, but also the Ministry of Health also challenged to vaccinate people over 65 years old in the same conditions that our project that I told you about. This is the only way to reach more people and faster. But the government, they are not available to pay the service to the pharmacies, but demand that will be free for people. From day one, the big challenge of vaccination is the payment for the service to the pharmacies and the pharmacists. The service is paid by the people who benefit from it. In a year of big complexity, the municipalities were involved, although a membership was voluntary, to pay the flu service administration to their community. The involvement of the municipalities demonstrates their concern to protect the most vulnerable people in their community. The excellent access was promoted, the safety, professionalism, quality and close proximity to people are guaranteed by the pharmacy. This year the vaccination campaign started on Monday, and it has the same characteristics as last year. To finish my presentation, I would like to leave a reflection on the future. In vaccination, people recognize our value, our quality, our competence, and value also the proximity of the service of the pharmacy. The time is too short to talk about all the things that I want to do, but a reflection about you for the students. I don't have time to talk about literacy and health education, and I think you are students today, but our future pharmacists in the future, you can make a great contribution in these points, and you can be the agents of change. I challenge you to develop some public health literacy campaigns, and also work with misinformation. With COVID-19, we have the experience that it's important to talk about this and to talk with people. It's important, the vaccination, and I leave this challenge for you. For the future, I also believe that the way to be taken will always be right if our focus and remains are on the people's needs and concerns. With new services, it will be possible to place pharmacists with a central connection with multidisciplinary health teams, which will allow us to reinforce the role of the pharmacy as a true public health center, acting in the early detection, diagnosis and treatment of people. The pharmacy is the only place, the only health unit that it's always open, and it's not necessary to make an appointment to clarify a health issues. This is precious. Pharmacies and pharmacists will always be part of the solution, and it is for this purpose that we work every day to make pharmacies and pharmacists more important for people, to promote better life for people.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Indeed, students would definitely agree that this information is something that needs to be tackled, and most of the national associations of pharmaceutical students here have been involved during the COVID-19 in tackling this information. We will now begin the Q&A sessions for the students. We have time for a couple of questions if any of you have one to one of our speakers. Yes? Yeah.
Sorry. Good morning. Thank you both for your presence. Those were very interesting presentations, taking into account that vaccination right now is a very important theme, and pharmacists should start being more involved. I have a question for speaker Katia. Two questions actually. The first one is why in Portugal didn't pharmacists get more involved in the COVID vaccination process? And the second one is, do you believe that starting vaccination in our curriculum at university could ensure us a better role in the vaccination in community pharmacies? Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the questions. For the first one, I don't know, more or less. Portugal has a great coverage of the people vaccinated with COVID-19, more or less 80%. And the Ministry of Health choose another way to vaccinate with people. Select a good man, to develop a strategy to vaccinate all the people. We don't know if in the future the pharmacies will be needed, I think, but I don't know. For the third doses, we don't have. In this period, we have a lot of space with hospital campaigns to vaccinate all the people, but in this moment we don't have all of them. And maybe, why not? It's a good suggestion for our government to involve the pharmacists. Why not? For the second one, I think it's important to include this theme on this issue on our curriculum. but these competences are a post-graduation competence. But I think we have a lot of things to do after graduation, and this is an important issue that the students can develop in your graduation.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions for our speakers? Yes, I see a question in the back here. Just right there. Thank you.
Hello. First of all, thank you both for your presentations. My question is also to Dr. Katja. Hola. I wanted to ask you, in your point of view, what is the next step for pharmacists and community pharmacists in this matter of vaccination? What is the next decade challenges, and where can we gain more points of action?
Thank you for your question. I think we have to stay alert what the people want and needs. We only vaccinated people with vaccines not included on the national vaccination plan. Why not about the vaccination plan? But I think we have an important role in the flu coverage, the flu vaccination coverage. Also, with tropical diseases, it's important. The pharmacy can be the place when a person wants to travel for a place. In a pharmacy, we can develop the service of, I don't know the name in English, but it's like a traveler consult or something like this. And I think it's another way, but I think COVID-19 maybe it will be like the flu vaccine, and it's another challenge for us, but I don't know. But we have a lot of service to develop on the pharmacy. It's not only the vaccine. The vaccination is the most important, yes, and but we have a lot of service that the people need, and we have to focus on the others also.
And don't you think that this process is a bit slow because there is a bit of corporativity in other professions like nursing, and they want to restrain certain activities to their profession? Do you think that's one of the factors that is affecting the slow progress of vaccination in the pharmacies?
Yes, but and the relationship with the government also, it's I think it's the most sensible issues, because the government changed, and we have to begin a new dialogue and to show about the work of the pharmacists.
I just want to answer also to that question. I think your second question answers your first question, because when you ask how can we gain more points of vaccination, I think if we are talking less about who can do the vaccine and talking more about vaccination, and all the healthcare professional community stick on the health public communication all together, I think we can gain more points on vaccination. So that's why you're right, it's going slow because of the argumentation of nurses, of GPs in all the country. In Germany, the GPs are very strong because they stopped vaccination by pharmacists just till now. So it's not a good thing for a patient to see how all the professionals arguing about vaccination like that. It's not a good picture for them to see us arguing and fighting about and struggling about vaccination. So we gain more points if we are all stick on the same conversation about vaccination.
another thing, I think the best solution is work together. I think it's the best solution for the people.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much for these inspiring words. In order to conclude this session, I just want to remind the students a few numbers. The first one is 11.8 students say that they have been taught practical skills in vaccination, and 28% of students have covered active listening, communication, and about vaccines in their curriculum. So those numbers are worrying, and with the presentation of both our speakers today, I think we all agree that a lot of active advocacy needs to be done in all of our countries and all over Europe. So thank you very much for your presentations. I would like to welcome the next speaker to the stage, Dr. Céline Rodi-Segui, who will talk about the revolution in regulatory affairs.
Hi everyone. First of all, welcome to Lyon. I am so happy to see so many pharmacy students in the city where I have studied pharmacy a few years ago. So welcome. I hope you have been able to enjoy all this fantastic time. Also, before I start my presentation, I wanted to know who wants to work in regulatory affairs, regulatory intelligence or policy. Thank you. Good idea. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the TOPRA, which is the Organization for Professionals in Regulatory Affairs. And in fact, the organization is, of course, inclusive, member-led, non-profit, and it's a global community. And it is, in fact, committed to the development of current regulatory affairs professionals, but also future professionals, so that's why I'm here today. They have developed a career information pack. There is a link on the presentation, but in fact, this pack is available through their website. And it is focusing on the regulatory affairs profession. And there is a free membership available for undergraduate students, so I really encourage you to become a member. There are so many valuable resources through the association, including the Regulatory Careers Fair, which is an opportunity for all of you to meet with future employers and to learn more about the field. Well, unfortunately, the last career fair was last week, but the next one, next year. Since I've said a few words about TOPRA, just a few words about my employer, Clarivate, which is a global company dedicated to helping the life science sector to discover, protect, and commercialize ideas faster. We have more than 6,000 employees in more than 100 countries, and we often have open positions, especially for pharmacists, so don't hesitate also to look at our career website. And if you want to know more about how a goldfish can change innovation, I invite you to Google goldfish and Clarivate. There's a short and funny video. Oh. So, now Derek. Why are we talking about evolution or revolution in regulatory affairs? Which is a topic for me today. In fact, for many years, since the start, the countries, in fact, have developed their own processes to approve new drugs. And you can imagine that this is leading to lots of complexity, differences, and when you want to launch a product globally, this can be quite a nightmare to manage from a pharmaceutical perspective. Over time, there has been significant regulatory convergence with the regulatory requirements of different countries or regions becoming more and more similar over time. And this is reflected, in fact, in the acceptance of internationally recognized standards and the implementation of regulatory mechanisms associated with them. And one of the examples is with the ICH standard, which is around since more than about 30 years. And also the WHO ATC classification system, I'm sure you are aware of it. Also the WHO, in fact, has been involved in the regulatory harmonization efforts, and this to increase access to medicines in the developing world. And this harmonization, in fact, can relate to inspection criteria, to reports, but also to the marketing authorization application and approval, for example. But given the extent of the globalization of the pharmaceutical environment and other drivers I will just cover just after, it's no longer possible for individual regulatory authorities to ensure their activities on their own. And that's why more and more, in fact, we are talking about collaboration, and why the topic today. So as I've said, there are a number of drivers leading to this revolution. We have talked about the globalized world. Another important driver is the limited capacity. We need to understand that globally, about a third of the national regulatory authorities have limited capacity to perform their core regulatory functions. So they can't work on their own anymore. Talking about political will, I take the example of the UK. For example, with the Brexit, the government has announced its willingness to be at the forefront of innovation. And this comes through the development of innovative approval pathways to allow it, in fact. With crisis, like the pandemic, we've seen that the national authorities have had to be more innovative in the way they work, and in fact, which was us to accelerate the reapproval of vaccines, for example. I've put as a driver sustainability of healthcare systems. More and more, it is important that healthcare systems are sustainable, both financially and environmentally. There is another element, the shift between mature and emerging markets. There's the example of China. For many years, China has been considered as an emerging market, but in fact, it's a very large market, and which is really looked closely after by the companies, and also because China, with many reforms since 2017, it's becoming more and more considered, in fact, as a mature market. So the NMPA, the agency, the national agency, is playing more and more important role at the international level. There are also new technologies, and new and complex technologies, like the cell and gene therapies or the digital health technologies. And in fact, they are challenging the way they can be approved. They are challenging the processes put in place by the agencies. And also they are challenging their expertise. With the visualization and digitalization growth, also there are new ways to interact and to share data, both between regulators and the industry, for example. And finally, the use of novel evidence, like real-world evidence, real-world data, they are changing the approach to demonstrating the safety, the efficacy, or the value of drugs. So all these drivers, in fact, are leading to the need to pool expertise, especially at the regulators level, to tackle the global health challenges. They clearly show the need for more efficiency to reduce duplication of efforts, especially with the approval of new drugs. And of course, all these new scientific evidence help to drive policy changes and increase the patient centricity. And there is one thing which is really important with all these drivers is the need for trust. If you need to remember one thing today from my presentation is the need for trust. between the different stakeholders, and that's why the collaboration is so important. Here, just a simple slide to show that collaboration is everywhere in the pharma ecosystem, and that the patient is at the center of this collaboration. I will just go more into details what collaboration means for regulators. In fact, regulators can collaborate with four main stakeholders: other regulators, HTA bodies, everyone knows what is an HTA body, industry, and the patients. So regulators can collaborate among themselves via the reliance mechanisms. That is to say, they are able to rely on an assessment from another regulator to make that for their own decision making. Examples of reliance mechanisms are Project Orbis, the Access Consortium, or Zasibona. And I will say a few words after about Project Orbis and Access. But just to say, in fact, that these reliance mechanisms, in fact, are in no way a loss of sovereignty from the countries, and it does not represent a less robust form of regulation. And in these mechanisms, in fact, the regulators are working with other regulators. We are like-minded and have a similar approach to decision-making. And finally, they provide both to the regulators and the applicants more flexibility in the way things are done. Another way for regulators to collaborate among themselves is to share knowledge, to build their capacity, to grow their capabilities. And we have this example with the Danish medicine agencies working with low and middle income countries, especially in Africa, under the umbrella of the WHO to grow their regulatory capabilities, in fact. Then we have the regulators collaborating with the HTA bodies, so to ultimately to pricing and reimbursement of the drugs. This collaboration can be done via early dialogue, like what we are seeing with the EMA working with UNETA. We also have the joint assessments or decisions. An example is the ILAP process in the UK, where you will have the regulator MHRA collaborating with NICE or SNC to accelerate patient access. Regulators can collaborate with the industry. This is not new here. The industry can have an early dialogue with the regulator. For example, in European Union, you will have scientific advice or protocol assistance with the EMA. With adaptive pathways or with conditional approvals, there is still this dialogue with post-approval commitments. But there is another collaboration which can happen between regulators and industry. It's to develop solutions. I take the example of the A-Cumulus Synergy initiative, where a group of big pharmaceutical companies are developing a tool that would allow to centralize the submission of dossiers in the cloud and facilitate interactions and review by the regulators. Finally, of course, regulators can collaborate with patients, and it is something which is growing and very welcome. And this can be done via working groups, like in European Union we have the Patients and Consumers Working Party, or through direct consultations with the patients or the patients groups, like the Project Patient Voice in the US. Sorry, just to summarize the benefits of collaboration. You put together two or more stakeholders at national or international level. This opens to early dialogue, to work sharing, to capacity building, and to the development and implementation of solutions. And the benefits are to increase compliance, of course, to the regulatory requirements, but also to develop more robust strategies, to save time and budget, that is to say, to be more efficient, and also to allow a faster patient access, And also by collaborating, this allows to shape or to influence policies, to grow the reputation and trust into an organization or regulatory body. Also by collaborating, they can build on experience for continued improvement, and this also allows them to anticipate the crisis. Very quickly, two examples of collaborations between regulators. You have the Project Orbis, you have the Access Consortium. They can look quite similar at first sight. They involve more or less the same countries, but they don't look exactly at the same remits. With the Access Consortium, involving Australia, Canada, Switzerland, the UK quite recently this year, and Singapore, in fact, the countries will review different parts of the dossier. Now, at that, for example. So you can see the regulators won't necessarily review the same parts of the dossier all the time. And there will be an independent decision regarding the approval of the drugs. And the Access Consortium will explore three categories of products: new active substances, biosimilars, and generics. On the other side, you have Project Orbis, which is led by the US FDA, and which involves as well Australia, Canada, Switzerland, the UK, Singapore, and Brazil. And here, in fact, there is a concurrent submission and review of the dossier, and this is really focused on oncology products. And with this collaborative review, in fact, there is an opportunity to identify regulatory divergence. These two pathways reduce duplication of efforts, as I've said, increase capacity on the regulator's side, and allow, at the end of the day, faster access for patients. And they also maximize the use of up-to-date technical expertise, as we've seen that sometimes it can be an issue, and especially with new technologies. And finally, it ensures a consistent and contemporary approach to decision making. But you would say, maybe in practice, what does that mean for regulatory professionals? Of course, regulatory affairs, regulatory intelligence, and regulatory policy professionals collaborate together, but they also need to collaborate internally with other groups throughout the development of the product, so the product life cycle, with management, with the headquarters, the affiliates, and other groups, and this really to ensure compliance to the regulatory requirements, and also to develop robust strategies. The regulatory professionals also need to collaborate externally, of course, with the regulators, of course, with the HTA bodies to get approval, pricing, and reimbursement for their products. But they also need to collaborate, to network with other groups, to gather more regulatory intelligence, to know what's not written in the guidelines, to know what's done at the national or international level. And this can be done through the TOPRA, for example, or other professional associations. But also by collaborating with trade associations, for example, or other groups, they can comment on white papers, on draft guidelines, and this helps to shape the regulatory environment. And finally, by also collaborating with academics, with other groups, with public-private partnerships, they can accelerate innovation. So by collaborating both internally and externally, again, this builds trust, and this helps grow the reputation. So how to increase collaboration? If you're not yet a TOPRA member, again, I invite you to become a member. We have developed a series of podcasts related to regulatory intelligence and collaboration, talking to many different stakeholders in the industry and outside of the industry, how they see collaboration, how they work with other groups. And we have also developed a page in our Regulatory Intelligence Knowledge Hub dedicated to how regulatory intelligence professionals can increase collaboration, and this goes via 4 main pillars, which are focus, tools and skills, communication, and behavior. One thing which is really important is know your network, do your own work, and sometimes if you are working, or not sometimes, but if you are working in the industry or even elsewhere, set up a dedicated team with a clear goal that will allow clear collaboration. One thing which is important, and I know that your generation is more and more aware of that, is to raise your brand, especially on social media. Let the world know that you are the experts, the go-to person. And another important element is to lead by example. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if there is one thing to remember, I've said trust is important, but also just to say that regulatory professionals are at the heart of the collaboration revolution. So that's why we're happy to see that there are future regulatory professionals here. And that's why also we decided with the TOPRA to choose collaboration as a theme for this year for our regulatory intelligence clinical.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for your presentation. Just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, just leave them on Slido, and we'll have panel discussion after coffee break, including the three speakers we had so far. Because now we'll need to have all the presentations, but your questions will be answered. So I would like to invite on stage our next speaker, Benoit Giraud, Global Brand Manager, Digital Solutions at Ergomedical, that will be talking about revolution in patient-centered innovations in healthcare. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone, so I'm so happy to be in Lyon. I studied pharmacy in Lyon, so I'm so happy to be back here. So I'm Global Brand Manager for Digital Solution at Ergomedical. So who are we? Who we are? So sorry. Okay, I think it doesn't work. Okay. So Urgo Group, you have three business units. So the first one is connected. It's Urgotech. It's all about stress management and connected device. The second one is wellness for all, so it's general public health. So maybe you know our brand like Mercurochrome, Juanine in France. And I'm part of Ergomedical, so it's advanced wound care and compression, so it's really for healthcare professionals and dressing on prescription. So we have one mission, is really to heal people and to help healthcare professionals heal people. So we have innovative products, so we have really physical products, so dressings like Urgostar, so we had really great proof in the Lancet. Also we developed like a Genesis project sponsored by the French President Emmanuel Macron to create the artificial skin. So really, we have a lot of product to heal wound. Okay, so our main product is really we demonstrate that we heal plus 60% people with diabetic foot ulcer, and it's really important because a day without a wound is really a risk-free day. So as you can see, chronic wounds are really sorry for the picture, but chronic wounds are really a public health problem it's really devastating for patients. So you can see in France, you have like 500,000 patients with leg ulcer and diabetic foot ulcer. On average, the healing time is 210 days, so it's more than 6 months, the average healing time. And you have one amputation every 30 seconds linked to diabetic foot ulcer. So it's really it's really important, and it costs a lot also for the society. So for example, in France, it costs like 600 million per year. Oh, sorry, So really, to achieve our mission of the healing company, we want to go beyond products, and we need to really needed to address the challenge of patient care. So what are the challenges of healthcare professionals right now? So they have a challenge of diagnosis. So it's really hard to do the proper diagnosis, and especially for infected wound. So the diagnosis it's very complex, and you need to implicate a lot of HCPs. So you need to implicate the nurses, you need to implicate the GPs, you need to implicate the specialists at the hospital and in community, and also you need to implicate the pharmacy. So there is a lot of people around the patient, and it's not easy to coordinate. Also, regarding the follow-up of the wound, so basically nurses take a lot of pictures of the wound, but they don't have a proper tool to do it. So they do it with their iPhone, with their smartphone, and it's mixed with their personal picture. So sometimes you have wound picture with your child picture, so it's really annoying for them. And also they do a follow-up on paper, so it's really annoying for them. Also, in terms of medical education, so when you look at the nursing school, they have only 6 hours of training in wound management, but it represents in terms of time 40% of their time at work. So it's not a lot. So basically, we went on the field. We met like HCPs, and they say, okay, there is a difficult coordination of the care team around the patient. So there is a limited sharing of information between caregivers, and there is a lack of communication between them. And really, our mission is to reduce this healing time. As you saw, you have an amputation every 30 seconds. It's really painful for the patient. During 6 months, you have a wound on your leg. It's so annoying for them. So we really want to, more than product, to help them, to help HCPs choose the right treatment, to help also HCPs to give visibility to the patient, because when you have a wound during 6 months, it's very hard to see the evolution of the wound, to say, okay, is it evolving well, is it evolving worse, I don't know. So it's really to give visibility of the patient, and also to favor patient compliance to treatment. So to say, okay, if you put these bandages, if you put this dressing, it works, you can see it. So it's really important. And then the standardization of care to really improve the patient outcomes, but also to reduce the cost for the society. So we promote regularly assessment and monitoring of the wound, to improve also the consistency of treatment between the hospital and the community, because sometimes you have a protocol of treatment at the hospital, and then the nursing community do what she wants or what he wants. So it's difficult to have this consistency of treatment between community and the hospital. And also to facilitate to the nurses in community or to GPs the access of the expert at the hospital, because sometimes it's not easy. You call, they don't answer. It's really it's not easy for them. And also to ensure patient referral at the right time. For example, if the patient has an infection, it's really important to go to the hospital. So the nurse needs to detect that there is an infection on the wound. So that's why we developed IDICO. So basically, it's going to be the wound care assistant of the HCPs in their pocket. So beyond our products, we really want to offer with this application a service to help healthcare professionals to care for their patients with wound. So how does it work? So basically, it's a free application. So you can download it on the App Store or on the Google Play Store. So the first feature is we help HCPs to assess the wound. So we develop like an assessment form, so you can really easily assess the different criteria of the wound. You can also we help them, we guide them in the sign of infection, so they can just click on the sign they see. So we really help them to do the proper diagnosis of infection. Then we help them to follow the wound. So instead of having all the picture in their phone gallery, they have everything at the same place, and it's also secure. So in the application, so they don't have any more wound picture mixed with their child picture. So it's better for them. And there also, as you can see, the wall of picture, like on Instagram, so you can see really the evolution of the wound, and you can show this evolution to the patient, saying, okay, look, it's evolving well, continue to wear your bandages, so go ahead. And then you can really easily share with your colleagues, so you can just send a message, you click on plus, like on WhatsApp, you can add them in the file, so you can add your colleagues, but you can add also the expert, you can add the GP, and you can chat directly in the application to say, okay, the wound is not evolving well, can you give me an advice? And the last thing is learn. So really we include like a training guide for nurses to help them, for example, when they are the patient that don't know what to do, they can really, like on Wikipedia, what is this type of wound, how to deal with a burn. So it's really a simple guide to help them in wound care. So basically, I will go quickly because I already say this. So they can really quickly assess the wound, they can indicate the treatment, they can take notes very quickly, and of course they can upload a picture. And everything is at the same place, so at a glance they can visualize the patient evolution and also give visibility to their patient because it's really important. In terms of sharing, of course, everything is secure. So it's not like on WhatsApp or maybe on other messaging application. It's really secure, end-to-end encryption, and also it's stored on health data, the health data provider. And also, in this training guide, we really put all the last guidelines regarding wound care because it evolves a lot every month. And sometimes nurses doesn't have the time to be updated on these last guidelines. So we need to help them keep updated on it. So as I said, everything is secure, end-to-end, and health data and the health data provider. So how we did it? So we really co-designed the application with healthcare professional. So I will show it just after. So basically, we are like a dressing or bandage company. So we are not a digital company, startup. So we had to think about a whole new process to develop this application. So really we wanted to be really user-centric. So we wanted to implicate all the users, so all our target users, so I will say all the HCPs, mainly nurses, but also GPs, pharmacists, and the specialists. And basically for one feature in the app, we have one, we call this a sprint. So it's a conception cycle for during 2 weeks, and we repeat it every 2 weeks for each feature. So the first thing, we do a brief. So based on user feedback, we say, okay, maybe we need to develop, for example, this wall of picture. So we brief based on the user feedback and also the market research. Then we work with the designer to define really a wireframe, so it's really basic. It's not with the UI, it's really only the user experience. So it's, as you can see, it's really a black and white mockups. And then after these mockups, we put like I would say the graphics, so the design, the user interface, and we develop this also with the designer. And then once we develop this, during the second week, we send to our users, so to our community of testers, but also to our current user, the mockups. So it's really a prototype, so it's not a developed application, and we give them a mission. So for example, create a patient in the app, upload a picture in the app, chat with your colleagues. We just say this, and we look at them, and we have like a result, like a heat map, so you can see really where they click, you can see really if it's intuitive for them, and then we do rework based, if we need to rework, we do rework based on these user feedbacks, and we repeat this every 2 weeks, so it's really important, and it changes a lot our process, so also in terms of quality and also in terms of the collaboration with the regulatory affairs and the quality, because we need to be more agile, because, for example, when we develop a dressing, it's like a 10-year project, and here we release an update every month. So it's not really the same project and the same process. So just to finish, I wanted to share with you to discover how Ilico is changing the life of a nurse, because it's really the main target for this application for nurses. So I just wanted to share this video.
My name is Carol. I'm 36 years old. I'm a nurse. It's 5:45 a.m. and my day begins now. In this profession, you have to like getting up early, driving for miles. You have to like walking. I spend a lot of time on my feet. But what I love, amidst all the rushing around, is taking time with my patients, time to heal them, time to listen to them. In the end, in our profession, time is what is most precious. But time flies very quickly. Today, to take care of my patients with wounds, I'm using Ilico. This app is a real partner. It helps me monitor and keep track of wounds, and allows me to interact with the rest of the patient's care team, my colleagues, specialists, and GPs, even remotely. Ilico helps me organise and monitor wounds every day and stay connected to the rest of the patient's care team to help heal my patients. Okay, it doesn't stop me from rushing around, but now I have time for myself too. It's 8 p.m. My name is Carol. I'm 36 years old. I'm a nurse, and my day is not quite over.
So thank you very much for. I hope you appreciate this presentation.
Thank you a lot for your presentation. Just a reminder for everyone, if you have questions, please add them on Slido, and please mention the speaker you are addressing the question to, and we will be answering to them after the coffee break. Now I would like to invite on stage our last speaker for today, Maya Sertic, which is a pharmacist, and she's working as Policy and Science Manager in Medicines for Europe, and coordinator of the Value-Added Medicines Sector Group, and she will be talking about Value-Added Medicines revolutions. The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning everyone. So I know I am the last thing between finishing this part of the symposium and the break, so I hope I can make this interesting enough to keep you awake before the coffee. And so I'll be talking about the topic of today, or the topic of this symposium and the conference is Pharmaceutical Revolution. So I'll definitely be talking about pharmaceuticals, about medicine. But what I want to really talk today is about how do we revolutionize the way we think to achieve evolution. And throughout the day today, so we started with pharmacists talking about vaccination, and I think it's been clear how hard it is to advance something that makes so much sense, right? Because we see that there is a huge effect to public health of pharmacists being able to vaccinate, and still there's been a lot of struggles in a lot of countries to achieve that. We've been talking about regulatory topic, we had a regulatory topic, we talked about convergence, so different countries have different regulatory rules when it comes to pharmaceuticals, and there's so many initiatives about trying to kind of come together and not work in silos. And what I want to say here, that we work in a very stringent environment, everything is super regulated, it's very hard to move things. And I think what we have also learned from COVID, we had a lot of gaps of how we deal with things in healthcare, and it has become very prominent and evident that we need to change and we need to adapt new things. And I think you as students, it's very important that you are not captured in these old ways that we do things, but we try to think beyond, and how can we do better? How can we achieve better outcomes for patients in the end? Okay. I hope I can, I learned now how to do this. So I will just briefly say who am I and who is the organization that I work for. So first of all, my name is Maja Šečić. I am a Slovenian and I'm a pharmacist. I am also EPSA alumni, so I've been part of this organization and part of the Slovenian National Association a lot of years ago, but that doesn't matter. And now I live and work in Brussels, so I work for Medicines for Europe. Medicines for Europe is a trade association, so we represent manufacturers of medicines that produce generic, biosimilar, and value-added medicines. So this is roughly around 80% of medicines that are being distributed to patients in Europe are belonging to those groups. So I have a quick question for you. So who is familiar with what is a generic medicine? Okay, this is quite good. So just quickly, generic medicine is, so we have a medicines that is protected because there has been innovation and it's protected for some years on the market, and then afterwards other manufacturers can also produce it. So this means that we have multiple sources of the same medicine on the market, which then means also that it's available usually for more people. So we like to say we bring access to patients. So then who is familiar with the concept of biosimilar medicines? Okay, I think a little bit less hands, but still very good. So biosimilar medicines, this is an off-patent version of biologic medicines. So it's basically the same concept as for the biologics. And who is familiar with the concept of value-added medicines? Okay, I see 1, 2 hands. Don't worry, I see you somewhere in the back. Good. But anyhow, I'm here to talk about it, so by the end of this speech, everyone will be familiar with the concept, so not to worry. Okay, so I want to start with a quote by the Nobel Prize winner in the area of medicines, and who invented actually beta blockers. So he said, the most fruitful basis for the discovery of a new drug is to start with an old drug. And why am I bringing this here? Because I am talking here about older medicines. I'm talking about well-established medicines. This is what our manufacturers are dealing with. And now to think about how we can use older medicines to come up further and to address patient needs. And this is not a new concept. We've been using it before. So if we look at the area of leg prosthetics, of course we know leg prosthetics for a long, long time. But imagine a patient today would have a wooden leg. So the science has progressed. We are going further and further, and today we are somewhere around here, but we already seen progress in trying to put a prosthetic that would actually behave like a leg, that would have senses and so on. So what we are trying to do with value-added medicines is to bring this kind of concept of continuous innovation also in the area of medicine. So taking something that is old and transforming it to the need of the patient today. And how do we do this? So we essentially say we have 3 different ways of doing this. So one is repositioning of drugs or repurposing. So taking something, seeing how it works on the body and saying, oh wait, but maybe it works for something else as well, and why don't we test that? The second is drug reformulation. So making a new delivery system. And we also have complex combinations, and here sometimes we combine different medicines together, but we can also combine medicine with some device, or combine medicine with services, as for instance with digital applications, and then help patients on their journey, help patients and HCPs with their relationship. And just wanted to show quickly what kind of things you're trying to address, and how do we see evolvement going from what we usually talk about in medicines is efficacy and safety, right? This is the first thing you learn in pharmacy school. And that's absolutely important, and this needs to be the basis, but then there are other things we have to think about. How does the medicine achieve the patient, and what are the struggles to actually achieve access to medicines and to have better healthcare? So we are here also talking about the adherence to treatment, patient experience in the treatment. We have to be talking also about the burden on household. So what is the burden on patient? What is economic burden? What is the economic and healthcare burden to the patient's family? What is the burden on healthcare system when it comes to the resource utilization, cost and efficacy? If we have a medicine that is in the hospital and then needs to be go in the preparation in the hospital pharmacy that takes 1 hour, or do we have a medicine that is ready to use, is a huge difference when it comes to the resources that the pharmacy have. Or the technological improvement with logistical considerations. With the vaccines, we have been talking a lot about the storage conditions, for instance. There is a huge difference if a medicine needs to be freezed, and then this means also we are limited in where it can be dispensed, or is something that we can deliver the room temperature. So these are very practical applications. But there are also others, like do we meet the needs of the pediatric population? Are we talking enough about how is patient taken by the elderly person? So these are all the different questions that come after is also, is medicine safe, is it efficacious? And this is something we are trying to deal with. So a bit to the practical point, and I'm going to go back to COVID, but also how has this transformed and where have we seen this type of innovation kind of helping with the COVID and helping us afterwards. So first of all, when we talk about drug repositioning and drug repurposing, if you recall, we were hit by COVID, and it was really hard because we didn't know how to now treat these patients. And we were developing a vaccine at the same time, we were trying to find new treatments. But while developing treatments, the best weapon we had at hand was old medicines. So at the time, they discovered that dexamethasone, which is a very old, not too expensive treatment, actually helped a lot of patients and reduced hospitalization by half. So this is the type of thing what I'm talking about when I'm talking about drug repositioning. So taking something that's there and using it for something else. Then in the drug reformulation, we have suddenly been also facing the challenge of hospitals being overloaded with COVID patients. So where do all other patients go? And there are a lot of patients that need to go actually to the hospital to receive their treatment. And one of the very prominent examples is oncology treatment. So I don't know if you're aware, but now we are also facing a big challenge that after we had these first waves of COVID, that a lot of patients are behind in their treatment. We see that there are patients that weren't diagnosed, so we are also now preparing for this next wave that will be more patients with other diseases, and we have to also answer questions, how will we treat all these patients? So, for instance, in the oncology, we have seen that there were some countries trying to recommend more home treatment. So, and with home treatment, this means we also need to reformulate medicines that are used in the hospitals and that are, for instance, injected. We need to make sure that they are able for people to be used at home. And then the third example I want to bring in complex combinations is the mental health. So we see a huge surge in symptoms of anxiety and symptoms of depression. And here we also have to find innovative ways to deal with this. So we see a lot of new treatments being developed that are the combinations of medicines with digital applications, because digital applications in this case can really help support patients. can really help support patients in their journey and then also help healthcare professionals to follow patients that they cannot see as frequent as they've seen before COVID, right? Okay. I promise I will be finishing in 5 minutes, and then hopefully this is not too disturbing for you. So I want to just add another quote from Professor Jean Bousquet, who is also very active in the pulmonary diseases. So the asthma, for instance, is really an example of disease where patients really struggle with adherence to treatment, with using their medication properly. And then we see that their patients get often also hospitalized due to them not being able to follow their treatment properly. So I think altogether we have a lot to do. So healthcare professionals, but also industry trying to adapt treatments in the way that patients can use them better. And so what he said is that we need a patient-centered approach. If we give to a patient something that he will never take, forget about the efficacy of treatment. And I think this is such an important message to take home as a future healthcare professional, to always think that giving patients something in their hand is not enough. You really have to make sure that the patient understands what this treatment is and how to take it. So, just to highlight one other this issue of adherence, and I think the speaker before me was already talking about it from a bit different perspective, but overall, and I think this is so fascinating, but we are talking about 20 to 40% of healthcare expenditure being allocated to unnecessary and non-cost-effective services. And while we struggle and we talk a lot about medicines are too expensive, there is no money to hire more nurses or more doctors or more pharmacy services, we actually put a lot of money in places where they bring absolutely zero value. And one of those things is also the suboptimal use of drugs, where 50% of patients actually have this issue of adherence. So what I'm talking about is not a couple of patients. Maybe you imagine some very old patient that cannot understand the treatment. No, it's 50% of patients that has issues with adherence to medicines. And so what the impact of this is actually that then we see disease worsening, patients ending up in hospitals, and then we need to switch them to a more to a different treatment perhaps, which might be more expensive, and this all results in much extra cost per year. So it's estimated to 125 billion euros are spent on this issue solely. So I'm going to leave you with that thought, and I hope that's something, the message you will take with you, whichever area you will work as a pharmacist later on. And just to conclude, I wanted to finish up with a simple, practical example of what continuous innovation means in practice. I will be talking about diabetes and insulins. So insulin is something our body produces, but we have been able to synthesize it artificially. And starting from this artificial insulin that the patient needs to apply with a syringe, we have evolved since then. We know that there have been different devices to inject, or pumps that automatically inject insulin to a person, but today we are moving towards injector that connects with your phone, with an instant measurement of what is your insulin level in the blood, and then your phone tells you you need to take insulin. So I think we can all agree that this is actually a very good development, evolution for a patient and for the treatment of diabetes overall, because we also know that with diabetes, if you're not taking your insulin continuously, this means that you will likely end up in hospital, you will maybe lose your leg, you will have all other complications. And so also what we were able to develop is that now we have different types of insulin. So we have long-lasting insulin, we have rapid insulin, so we are able to manage those diseases much better and provide patients with a much better quality of life than we've been 70 years ago when we started treatment with insulin, right? And very interestingly, today insulin is also being investigated as a possible treatment for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. So the two diseases that are very complicated, and we actually don't have any very efficacious treatment at the moment for it. So just to say that there is, if we take from this example, there is a lot that we can do with other medicines and just rethinking how we are using them and trying to use them better. So thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you a lot for your presentation. Again, if you have questions, please add them on Slido, and we'll be taking them after the coffee break. We'll be starting now, just please sit down 2 more minutes. We'll be starting the coffee break now for half an hour, so we'll be meeting here at 11:15. But before that, the reception committee has few quick logistical updates for your site. So please listen to what they have to say, and then you can go to the coffee break.
Thank you. I'm going to make this really quick because I know everyone wants to go on the break. So the food has been spread out across the whole area, so just don't all agglomerate in front of the coffee. You can all go get croissants and everything everywhere. And second point, really important, please go and interact with the partners, love them, talk to them. You'll see they're quite nice. And that's it for us. Thank you.